In the opening moments of Halo Infinite's campaign, a despondent pilot says to Master Chief, "You have one bullet against an entire army. What can you do on your own?" Chief, with all the stoicism that fans have come to love him for, replies in that iconic gravelly voice, "It's enough." After a couple of lackluster entries, I've been feeling less and less drawn to the Halo franchise, so it was difficult not to read into that moment. For me, once a diehard fan, Halo Infinite feels like developer 343 Industries' last shot at reinvigorating my fandom, and based on what I've played of the campaign, it might just be enough.
Wow, look at this place. It's so full of more monsters coming to kill us.
Halo Infinite sets up the drama of its narrative by placing the story in the shadow of Master Chief's failure, which is laid bare when he's discovered and thawed out by the aforementioned pilot. While Chief floated through space, cryogenically frozen, the Banished carved a bloody warpath through the UNSC's forces. For all intents and purposes, the fight is finished, and the Banished are on the cusp of victory. The death blow will be dealt to humanity when they secure control over Zeta Halo. It's in this state of affairs, and what Chief represents within it, that I found myself starting to remember why I love this franchise, and character, so much. The as of yet unnamed pilot represents the reality of the world Halo Infinite takes place in. He has lost much, and his desperation to survive and return to whatever semblance of home remains for him is evident. At every opportunity, the pilot implores Chief to walk the other way when battle approaches. The pilot doesn't see victory as a possibility, only more death and destruction. But, as before, Chief is once again that voice of hope. His fight to save humanity begins with a tumble through space, weaving through a wreckage as he scavenges whatever guns and ammo he can find to give himself a fighting chance. As he does, somber piano keys play, and it feels like the return of a hero, who is throwing himself at impossible odds just because it's his duty. Admittedly, this sounds pretty much like every other Halo title in existence, but what distinguishes Infinite is that this narrative setup and the emotional weight it trades off is supported by the gameplay. The first 3 missions of Infinite's campaign are classical Halo affairs. It feels familiar and comfortable, the way you might feel while fighting through a set piece in one of the first 3 Halo games. The fact that Infinite begins by successfully evoking those games is, to me, a great sign. These missions are a display of stunning sci-fi architecture, in which you battle through tight corridors, frantically gunning down scurrying grunts who squeal in that comedic way they do, eventually emerging into more open rooms where you can slip behind cover and leap around as you trade head-on blows with brutes, or try to stick tricksy elites with grenades. It's that classic Halo gameplay that begins with a single shot, and before you know it, you've gunfired, grenaded, and meleeed your way through dozens of enemies and cleared out a room. Smooth, scrappy, and oh so satisfying. Much of these first few missions is spent setting the stage for the story. Without spoiling anything, and because I don't know exactly where it's going and how it will pan out, Cortana still has an important part to play in the narrative. Gone though she supposedly may be, her presence is weaved into what happens in a way that gives her that kind of invisible hand guiding events feel. Though it's early, there are also hints at grappling with themes of mortality, legacy, and responsibility, which is an exciting prospect for a franchise as storied as Halo. Where Infinite truly came into its own, at least in the first few hours that I played it, was when it let Chief loose in the open world. Here, changes made to the Halo gameplay framework that felt awkward in previous games felt more at home in this new one. The setup is simple, and I dare say overly familiar given the prevalence of open world action games, but within the context of Halo it feels fresh and exciting. Chief is dropped onto Zeta Halo and a few markers are placed on the map. Some lead to the main mission that will progress story, while others allow you to help out UNSC soldiers who have found themselves in a spot of bother.
Oh no. It looks like there are multiple UNSC squads engaged in trying to survive. They need your help, Chief.
There are high-value members of the Banished army that you can attempt to take out, or Spartan cores you can track down and use towards improving your equipment. In the time I had, I was able to improve the cooldown on the grapple shot and even give it the ability to stun enemies briefly. There were also options to improve the performance of my shield, with other equipment and upgrades clearly also yet to be discovered. Also dotted around the map are forward operating bases that have been overrun by Banished. By wiping out the occupying forces here, Chief can take them back and allow UNSC forces to establish a stronghold. Doing this is incredibly satisfying because it allows you, as legendary super soldier Master Chief, to descend upon unsuspecting enemies and lay waste to them, expertly picking them off one by one in a hail of bullets and bombs. These enemies react to your presence, some running away in terror, others brazenly attempting to hold their ground. These FOB missions felt like big battles, but in contained locations within a larger open world. The enemies didn't feel like pushovers, and I often found myself with my back up against the wall. This is where the grapple shot, which allows Chief to hook onto surfaces and propel himself, came into play, and it's a genuine game changer for Halo. Even in the little time I have spent with the game, I can't see myself playing another Halo without it. The grapple shot brings a sense of dynamism to the Halo combat experience that it has been so sorely missing amid shooters like Call of Duty, Battlefield, Apex, and others, which are more energetic contemporaries. The grapple shot also introduces strategic considerations that just didn't exist before, letting Chief pull items and objects in the environments to him, whether that's a gun or an explosive canister. It also allows him to latch onto enemies and quickly close the distance to deliver a crushing melee attack right to their face, and then swing into the air and out of sight just as quickly. With the grapple shot, there's a sense of dominance you can exert over the battlefield that feels genuinely exhilarating. And even out of combat, moving around the vast open world is made all the more enjoyable by the grapple shot. I was able to scale cliff sides with ease and leap from ridiculous heights and land safely simply by grappling at the last moment. At times, I felt like a pebble skimming across the top of water, and it was a delight. These elements alone bode well for the open world format. Moving around Zeta Halo with the grapple shot and then descending upon entrenched Banish to clear out FOBs alone feels like it could be a great new addition to the Halo formula, and one that modernizes a franchise that, for me, has been struggling to find a comfortable new groove to work within in the post-Bungie era. But I think the broader implication of what the open world and the various missions offered within it represent is way more exciting for me. The first few missions of Infinite felt like 343 saying it knows that it has some work to do still, that it needs to prove that Halo and Master Chief still have what it takes. And that is exactly what it feels like this game is about. Unlike the last few games in the series, Halo Infinite doesn't just want to say Master Chief is a legendary Spartan. It wants you to prove it.